We have, just like yesterday, a whole set of wonderful and inspiring speakers. We warmly invite you to check out their work, to engage with them, to leave us comments and questions in the chat. And please don't forget to check out the project fact sheets that are available on the Heritage Research Hub website. They are full of goodies. It's a treasure trove of information to discover all these projects that are featured in these 2 days. So, without further ado, let's dive into the content of this morning. And I would like to invite for the keynote speech of this morning, Egle Rinjavitute from Kingston University in London. She's a professor of criminology and sociology, and her research explores global governance and scientific expertise during the Cold War, society and science and technology, particularly nuclear and digital technologies, also cultural policy, cultural heritage and creative industry, and of course she's the author of several books on these really thought-provoking topics, and you're warmly invited to check them out and read them, and then let us know what you think. So Egle, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Miruna, and it's really great to be here, and I would like to thank the organizers, particularly Pascal, Charles, Shengyun, and the whole team at the French Ministry of Culture, as well as at Château de Versailles. Do we have the next slide? Yes, we have it. Great. Okay, so without further ado, we will go to the next slide, please. Okay. Even better. So I'm really delighted to be here and to speak to you at this early morning, 9 o'clock. Okay, on that note, yep, the time is up. Right? And to present some of the insights from the project Nuclear Spaces that I've been fortunate to work on for over more than 3 years now. And this is who we are, the transnational and interdisciplinary team of Nuclear Spaces. We had researchers and associate partner organizations in the UK, Sweden, and Lithuania. And as you can see, we also were fortunate to have a consortium that includes representatives of national museums, local municipalities, but also nuclear energy industry establishments in 3 countries, and I will explain why it is important. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah, great. So in the context of global climate change and geopolitical tensions, technoscientific inventions are proposed as solutions. However, we are now living with an increasingly complex legacy of past techno-solutionism, one of which is the Cold War nuclear infrastructures, which are reaching the end of their life cycles. As old nuclear reactors are being closed down, the question is it only radioactive waste that is left behind? Are these nuclear infrastructures a burden, or are they a resource and valuable heritage? The questions that the whole JPI programming initiative has been asking. What is a burden? What is a value among the things that we inherit from the past? So since 2015, even before the project, our group began to raise the question of historical and cultural value of nuclear cultural heritage. And whilst doing that, we became increasingly convinced that cultural heritage approaches can actually improve democratic governance and safe management of nuclear legacies. So heritage studies can do something to improve the management of nuclear legacies. It's not only about learning about the past through those structures. And so we explored those questions through 3 national sites: Sellafield and Dounreay in the UK, and also Barsebäck in Sweden, and Ignalina in Lithuania. Next slide, please. Okay. So first of all, so what is nuclear cultural heritage? There is an undoubtful cultural heritage value of technology more generally. And in these images, you see 2 examples of that. So one is the view of taken from below of a Barsebek nuclear reactor that communicates strong aesthetical values. It's just an incredible world of cooling pipes which would have been used where the reactor exploded and dropped down. That fortunately never happened. So it's like a legacy of preventing or dealing with disaster in case it happens, but it didn't happen. So it's possible to go there and kind of see this incredible technological projection of the future. On the right side, you see a handwritten note left on the equipment in Augusta, Sweden's first nuclear power plant, where the engineers building it left a message to those who would decommission the plant. And now this message is part of the National Museum of Science and Technology collection in Sweden. Such nuclear infrastructures are what the cultural theorist Susan Schuppli calls material witnesses of what is a difficult and complex past of nuclear politics, and studying and preserving them can be of great importance to societies. Next slide, please. But nuclear cultural heritage is also about people who built and operated nuclear facilities. And here you see a graffiti left by the Russian-speaking builders of Visaginas, Lithuania's only nuclear town in the 1980s. Next to it, you see the image of Ignalina nuclear power plant's control room, which was the workplace of engineers. So both cities and plants are sites of material and intangible heritage of nuclear expertise and safety culture. Only the people in the image, actually the nuclear spaces team on the fieldwork. Next slide, please. Nuclear cultural heritage is also the landscapes of industrial nature, the hybrid spaces defined at once by secrecy and expansive vistas. So this view onto Sellafield site, the largest nuclear site in Europe, that is undergoing now fast decommissioning, exists no more. So the visitor center, where these people are sitting and admiring the view, has been demolished, and Sellafield's skyline is changing as towers and buildings are being dismantled. So that has consequences to local communities, identities, economies, but also, I would argue, national democracy and the future knowledge about the 20th century's nuclear history. Next slide, please. Okay, so of course we published a lot of scientific outputs to promote critical agenda of nuclear cultural heritage. Next slide, please. Next one. Yeah, oh no, the one? Yeah, that's the one. But we also sought to inform practice and facilitate contact among practitioners through our project. And I will just very quickly go through examples of impacts. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, for instance, we supported the funding application to restore the model of the Ignalina nuclear power plant, originally made in the Soviet Union in 1980, before the actual nuclear power plant was built. So this model was refurbished, and now you can see it on the permanent display at the Energy and Technology Museum in Vilnius. Next slide, please. We collaborated with Malmö museums to capture children's memories of a changing landscape of Barsebek nuclear power plant, and these drawings have been accessioned to the museum's permanent collection. Next slide, please. Through associate partnership with, so we also worked with local government of Visaginas in Lithuania and informed the creation of a new city museum that documents and displays everyday life of the atomic community and their work at the plant. Next slide, please. And through associate partnership with Information Management Department of the UK Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, we informed the development of NDA's heritage strategy, which will embed cultural and heritage value in the process of nuclear decommissioning nationally. Next slide, please. And finally, nuclear spaces continue presenting the cultural heritage agenda at the highest level forums of the nuclear industry, such as, for instance, the conference organized by Germany's Federal Office for the Safety of Nuclear Waste Management this year. Next slide, please. And just to wrap it up, to develop these impacts, we were successful because we dedicated ourselves to work transnationally and collaboratively, which is necessary in the context of highly restricted access, but also in the context of vulnerable local economies where nuclear infrastructures are situated. Next slide, please. And there is so much more to tell, but the time is up, so I just would like to invite you to visit our project's website, where you will find a lot of interesting materials to browse, and where you can also download the electronic version of the final report. And I would like to thank you, and I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Egle, for this insightful keynote that has definitely gotten our minds spinning for this first part of the event. And it's really interesting how the project also touched upon other topics that we mentioned yesterday, such as this aspect of intergenerational connection. And you're warmly encouraged to check out the publications of the project, and the exercise that they did with the children is mentioned in the article. I will be missing it, and I don't know why. And it's very interesting to see children's perspectives on nuclear heritage. So we have, of course, a lot of ground to cover, and we're moving on with the roundtable, which will be moderated by Johanna Leisner from Fraunhofer. And you may be familiar with her already, but just to introduce her, she has been researching the impacts of climate change on cultural heritage for over 20 years. She has been the chair of the OMC expert group of EU member states on strengthening cultural heritage resilience for climate change. And of course, she's a member of the European Commission's expert group on cultural heritage. And I will, of course, leave her the pleasure to introduce the panelists. But if I may, I will introduce the discussant that will be reacting to the conversation happening on stage. And we are talking about Annelie Sjölander-Lindqvist from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden. Annelie has conducted research in social anthropology and human ecology, and has coordinated numerous multidisciplinary projects over the course of her career. Just like Jana, she comes today with over 20 years of experience in sustainability research, project management, and the higher education sector, including projects on topics such as natural resource management, human-wildlife coexistence, critical conservation, social science, and critical heritage. And speaking of critical heritage, she's also the deputy director of the Center for Critical Heritage Studies at the University of Gothenburg. As a last fun fact, Annelie was involved in a project financed under a 2014 call by the JPI CH, and the project is called Gastrocert. So without further ado, I would like to invite Johanna and Annelie to come onto the stage so that we can kick off this roundtable. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Bonjour à tous. Welcome to our session, Heritage Under Pressure. And we have learned yesterday from the fantastic contribution of the chief administrator of the Château de Versailles about the challenges, about the pressures. A site like Château de Versailles is not only a museum, it is an ecosystem. What kind of challenges, what kind of problems they are facing, from climate change, from environmental degradation, but also from management topics. And that shows us that this heritage under pressure is really multifaceted. And here the role of research comes into play. Research is the driver of implementation of the good practices. Without the research, we would not advance in the pace we are wishing for. And this is what we know from the OMC report. 83 good practice examples, they all were mostly inspired and initiated by research projects. And in our session here, we will hear about topics of preparedness, how can we prepare in times not only of climate change, we also have another big topic, and these are the geopolitical situations and the conflicts and the war we have also in Europe. So we will cover problems of old problems, but still not solved. And we will hear also about the preparedness. What can we do to prepare and to make people aware how we can protect our heritage? And while we are protecting our heritage, we are also protecting ourselves. So our speakers of today will be, the first one will be Josephine Rasmussen. She is the head of research and development at Arkivet Peace and Human Rights Center in Norway. She has a background in history, law, and cultural heritage studies, and she did her PhD in archaeology. Then our next speaker and contributor will be Emanuela Romagnoli. She is from the forestry. She has a master's degree in forestry and environmental sciences from the University in Tuskegee. And she has a PhD in wood science, and she is full professor of forest wood chain, wood technology and harvesting, a topic which fits very well here also to the Château de Versailles. And then we will have Mrs. Elodie Guilminon. She is a conservation scientist, and she is assistant coordinator of the ICOM-CC Metals Working Group at the Laboratoire Arc Antique. The next speaker will be Mrs. Nushine Shahizadeh. I hope I pronounce it correctly. She's a professor and chair of the crystallization in porous media and group leader at the University of Amsterdam. And she currently is the director of the Van der Waals Zeeman Institute for Experimental Physics and member of the scientific board of the Netherlands Institute for Conservation, Art and Science. And last but not least, we have Monsieur Gilles Jomas. He is a chemist, and he has been working for 30 years at the ARC Nuclear. He has a specialization in the treatment of wet composite archaeological objects, and he has been using the PEG freeze drying process, very famous process for the waterlogged wood. And he has been working more specifically for 10 years on the problem of acidification of objects which are contaminated by sulfur and iron salts. I would like now to ask my colleagues to come to the stage, please. And I would like to give the floor to Josephine. Please come here. Oh no, as you want. You can sit.
Maybe it's easier.
Okay, then please stay there. And well, please be as short as possible. Try to keep the maximum of, let's say, 5 minutes, so that we still have enough time to discuss together these important topics, the important topics you are presenting. Please, Josephine.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, organizers. So the focus of, I think I have a slide up.
First slide.
Here we go. The focus of the DCOPE project was on how cultural heritage has been targeted, protected, but also used as a source of resilience during Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So first, I want to highlight our close collaboration with Ukrainian partners. Really, their expertise has been essential in advancing the wartime heritage protection and support the professional sustainability of those working under extreme conditions. I also want to draw attention to one of the project's major practical outcomes, a legal database that assists cultural property owners, administrators, and law enforcement in navigating the complex requirements for evacuation and safeguarding cultural objects, but also to prevent illegal acquisition and exploitation connected to wartime looting. And finally, in terms of impact, which is the topic we're discussing here, I also want to highlight that DCOP's findings and our results are actually already shaping policy and preparedness. Our recommendations are informing policy development, and heritage institutions, particularly in Norway, I come from Norway, so that's why I'm highlighting this, are integrating now, in these insights are integrated into crisis planning and their implementation of the Hague Convention in the Norwegian context. So basically, like, one of the major things that I'm very proud of in this project is that heritage institutions and practitioners are taking the cues from colleagues in Ukraine that we worked with and neighboring countries and applying the insights from this research in their own work on disaster prevention and preparedness. So we have wonderful partners in this project, and I haven't listed them on the slide. I should have, but I put up a QR code so you can scan the QR code and you'll come to the project website on the NICU's homepage, the Institute for Cultural Heritage Research in Norway, and our partners are listed there, and you can also get in contact with them. I think that was a little bit over a minute, but thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we go to we have the questions at the very end. So the next speaker will be then, I think, Emanuela. No?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I will sit.
Thanks. Don't touch? Okay. Thanks, and as a first, many thanks to the JPI office to have invited us and me to represent our project, which is Wood PD Lake. The main topic of Wood PD Lake is to consider the effect of climatic stress on archaeological wood and wooden pile dwellings. My partner, I act as a coordinator of the project. I am from the University of Tuscia. But in my project there are very important partners. Gilles Schumat as a representative of Arc Nuclearte, and the Italian Restoration Center represented by Giulia Galotta and Marco Ciabattoni, and the Autonomous University of Barcelona represented by Raquel Piquet. Please, the second slide, please. And then I think we can move also to the third. We took into account two case studies, two Mediterranean lakes. The first one is in Spain, and it is on a Carsic situation, and it is the lake of La Draga, Banyol, near Barcelona. The second case study is in close to Viterbo, my town, and it's a volcanic lake. It's the lake of Bolsena, which is the largest volcanic lake in Europe. And we have done also something in Mezzano Lake, which is another volcanic lake right close to my university. Please, that's the site of La Draga. The archaeological pile dwellings were in very different conditions, because in La Draga we had poles above the ground, partially submerged, and some archaeological piles were waterlogged exactly in the lake. And the next slide, please. While in Bolsena, we are in a typical situation of waterlogged wood. Now, our project was developed in three main pillars. The first pillar was to increase the knowledge and to make the knowledge available for municipalities, other scientists, and so on. So it was based on archaeobotany, palynology, and dendrochronology, and the landscape analysis. The second pillar was based on wood analysis degradation. Please, the next slide, okay? On wood analysis degradation with classic and less classic methods, and also sediment analysis, which was considered an index of the presence of wood in the lake, and as an index also to have an estimation of wood degradation. The third pillar was related to the analysis of climatic data of cars, to the analysis of water parameter close to the archaeological settlement. And it was done, that's very important, also using a probe which was located very close to the archaeological settlement. So we had the chance to analyze very high frequency climatic data. And the last, but not at least, was the aquarium idea, by which we, the next slide please, we prepared the different aquarium which are like a mesocosmo. Some were located in the laboratory of Jill and the other were located in my laboratory. And in that aquarium we tried to simulate very different climatic stress based on the analysis of climatic data. Please, the next slide, that are my aquarium in which we put also the water of the lake each week. Then the next slide. What we reached at the end of our project. At the end of our project, we were aware that, okay, because our samples were waterlogged and partially also embedded in the sediments, both looking to the position in the lake, so in situ, and the other in the aquarium. So our conclusion is what is quite obvious. The wood embedded in the sediments were better preserved than wood above the sediments. And we had the chance to get the proof by mesocosmo, aquarium, and also by in situ analysis, because we resampled some samples that we analyzed 10 years ago. Then, but we were also aware that wood embedded in the sediments is not enough to preserve it by the effect of climatic stress and anthropic pressure. That's very important because especially during the summer we have a big uptake of water, and so we have to improve the knowledge. Another important conclusion is that aquarium is a very important tool to get interesting results. And but we have to combine with monitoring in situ to alert municipalities and about the change of the equilibrium. And the possible solution to preserve our wood is to find a best practice in territory management and a nature-based solution to preserve wood in the sediment and don't change so much the biogeochemical equilibrium surrounding wood poles. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Manuela, for this interesting talk. I would like to give now the floor to Elodie. And we are hearing about a topic which is very new to me, and we are very curious to hear what kind of heritage you are dealing with.
Next slide, please. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here and to present this project, is ProCraft. Next slide, please. So, in this project, we're interested in undervalued heritage is aircraft. It's aircraft heritage from World War II. And these aircraft carry an incredible historical, technical, and human stories, but they're very fragile. And if you do nothing, they disappear. Next slide, please. So, with ProCraft, we wanted a comprehensive approach from excavation to museum or exhibition. It was possible because different partners were experts at each step on the chain of operational chain. We obtain a lot of results, and we don't speak the all result here, but we can, all results are free and available on the Zenedo platform. Next slide, please. So, I think the success of this project is due to the diversity of the partners. We can work with a public institution, scientists, researchers, conservators, curators, museums, and an important actor of this heritage is volunteers with associations. And the last slide, please. So, I want to thank all my partners, main partners, French, Italian, and Czech partners. They have the money for this work, but other partners, the third partners, is very important because without us, we can't do this project. So thanks for everybody.
Thank you for this interesting insight into the aircrafts, which are at the reason why we also have a little bit of the climate change, because we are flying all too much, but it is important to preserve them. Let's go now to our next speaker. This is Nushine, please. And her topic is a topic which is still not solved. Crystallization is something which is accompanying us, at least in the cultural heritage research area, for a very long time. And I'm looking very much forward what kind of new solutions you will present to us.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for this very exciting gathering. It's really nice. I have learned a lot yesterday. Okay, so you may probably know that salt crystallization is one of the leading cause of damage to cultural heritage. And because of the climate change, this is going to even be worse in future. And our project, Christine Art, the aim was actually to understand, analyze, and model salt deterioration in materials that are composite, which means that layered materials are used to make these objects, as you can see in these images, like glaze and the earthen clay body of the tiles, or mural paintings, and or ceramics, as you can see in these pictures. So by combining experiments using really highly advanced techniques such as X-ray microtomography and nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy with numerical modeling, we have been able to show how some salts can actually accumulate beneath the interface, and this can lead to the fracture and the delamination in these areas. We have also shown how when the area of damage will increase with time and aging, actually the crystallization can shift from the top surface beneath the materials in the porous materials, and this can even make worse the degradation afterwards. And one of the key or the strength of our project was this interdisciplinary theme. We had a very, very interactive dialogue. This was actually a combination of civil engineers, scientists, and conservators. And we had also a lot of interaction with Rijksmuseum. And this was really great. Sometimes it's not easy, as you can imagine, because we have different vocabularies and different way of seeing. Each field has its own way of doing things, but it was very, very fruitful. And we ended up with 9 papers in peer-reviewed journals, 2 PhD theses, and several public outreach presentations, such as at the Viva Physica in the Netherlands and ma thèse en 180 secondes in France. And we ended up the project with an international workshop symposium that was organized at the Netherlands Institute for Conservation of Art and Science, where different experts from all over the world we invited to come and to discuss these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you for this first overview on this very important problem of crystallization, which is also a problem for the wonderful stained glass windows we have seen in Chartres and also in Notre Dame. So it is still a problem which is not fully solved. Let's go now to the next intervention, and this will be Gilles, please. Your topic will be also on the wooden buried objects, and we are looking forward to hear more about your research.
Thank you, Joanna. So today I represent the consortium of the STAR project. This project was devoted to the conservation of objects made of organic material, especially wood. So these artifacts are among the most fragile and unstable in museums. And in the framework of this project, we studied their behavior in 3 peculiar and critical periods of their life. The first one is the reburial, if it exists for the collections. The second one is the storage in wet conditions between the excavation site to the conservation treatment in a workshop. And finally, post-treatment, we are looking for new methodology to perform monitoring of the object in museum or in dedicated storage center. So we have 3 topics and 4 partners. So for the reburial activity, this aspect was treated by the University of Poznań, associated to the Archaeological Museum of Biskupin in Poland. So they are managing a very important, amazing collection of archaeological wood, perhaps the most important one in Europe. So it represents remains coming from ancient civilization, Lusatian civilization, the birth of the slave civilization in the east of Europe, very ancient civilization, 8th century BC. And now this collection, the main part of this collection is still buried, and protected by an environment very humid with lakes. And their contribution focus on 2 subtopics. The first one is the assessment of the collection after a very long duration storage of reburial, 90 years. And the second point is the management of the environment of this collection underground, and to solve problems due to the climate change, especially the invasion, the extension of the plant's cover with the destruction effect of the roots and rhizome that can touch the object. The second topic is the storage in wet condition. So this work was done by Art Nuclear. We recall it is strictly forbidden to air-dry archaeological artifact because we have the risk of collapse and destruction of the initial shape irreversibly of the artifact. So the archaeologist must maintain always the artifact in humid conditions, so they use tanks with water, but rapidly we have biological contaminations. As you can see in the picture at the middle, you have contamination by yeast, by bacteria, and by algae. So in the project, we test several chemical formulations to identify biocide, not too toxic, not too expensive, to limit these infestations. So you have a list of all the products we tested, some acido-basic products, more or less strong, oxidants, solvents, brine salt, and 2 green products such as enzyme and vegetable tannins. But in parallel, we have to check if these chemicals are not too dangerous for the objects themselves. So we use the skills of University of Pisa in Italy, because they are experts in the characterization of ancient organic materials by using mass spectroscopy techniques. And they assess and they produce in the pH scale a range in which the materials are very well preserved. And the third project is led by University of Oslo. So we are after the treatment in museum, and we develop a methodology to perform a monitoring of the object. It's not sufficient for very sensitive collections to keep only environmental monitoring. We have to follow directly on the artifacts their stability. So they tested different techniques, not too invasive, not too expensive, and not too complex for curators or responsible of collections.
Yeah, thank you for this first round of discussion, and we could see and hear that we are dealing with the heritage on a more global scale and the policy scale, from how we can be prepared, but going down to the specific object and to the very deep into the problem of crystallization and also the wood problem. I mean, wood has been around us since I think we are on this planet Earth. And you see that still research is going on and that we still are looking for the most sustainable solutions. And yeah, let's discuss now a little bit how we can bring the solutions from the research into practice, and not only into practice for heritage managers, but also on the decision-making level. And so I think we must rearrange a little bit, because we didn't know that we were so many on this panel. Yeah, let's start with a more a very timely topic, which is the nuclear renaissance, what we see now everywhere in the discussion, every country, because of climate change also, they want to go back to nuclear power plants. And what you have been showing to us, Egle, was really very, very, very impressive. And your report contains a lot of policy guidelines. And how do you plan, I mean, to disseminate this, your research to the policy level? Because I think they are sometimes not well informed of what is happening in the research. So please, can you elaborate a little bit on your plans for your policy guidelines?
Well, thank you, first of all, so much for this excellent question. And indeed, there is an ongoing push from the nuclear industry establishments all around the world for building new nuclear power plants, constructing new reactors. And this is something that started maybe 5-6 years ago in response to calls to stop using oil and gas. But also there are geopolitical considerations as well, because nuclear power has been traditionally promoted as something that supports national sovereignty. There are equally a lot of criticisms towards that link between nuclear power and sovereignty as well, so one has to remember that. Nevertheless, there are these ideas of developing new types of reactors, small modular reactors, which are small and they are promoted as being somehow safer. But there are also initiatives to build the large ones too. Not much is being done at the moment. It's still more or less on the experimental stage, but there is this policy orientation which is being placed on the table for decision makers, as you see. So the question, so when one looks back into into the history of nuclear energy, what one sees is, and the arguments that are being made, is that one cannot develop new nuclear establishments today like they did in the 1940s and 50s. So now nuclear safety, long-term radioactive waste management and decommissioning plan has to be part of a plan of building the new facility. And this is where heritage approach comes in very many ways. So one way how heritage matters for the debates about the future of nuclear energy is the future of nuclear waste. Even well, we have enough, we have enough nuclear waste already, and if new nuclear reactors are coming into play, even if they are small, they will still generate highly radioactive nuclear waste. So how to safely manage those materials, but also how to communicate the knowledge about those materials to future generations. And this is where nuclear industry goes to learn from archaeologists and from historians and from heritage scholars. And we do it through a set of different agencies, where one of the most important ones is the OECD Nuclear Energy Agency based here in Paris. And we have a long-running memory program that engages humanities and heritage scholars. And this is where I've been, or members of Nuclear Spaces have been engaging with that community of policymakers through OECD Nuclear Energy Agency. Another important international policymaker is the International Atomic Energy Agency. And we are a really important actor for us, for our type of research, because IAEA, they have changed the kind of approach to nuclear decommissioning about 10 years ago, where the argument goes that in order to meet the requirements of sustainability, maybe it doesn't make sense to completely demolish existing old nuclear power plants and reactors. Maybe they can be reused. The challenge there, of course, is scientific. How do you clean them up effectively, but also economically, so that it is affordable? But the very idea of reusing the sites, maybe for new nuclear reactors or maybe for other purposes, and our project, of course, would argue that heritage purpose is as important as energy generation purpose. So that's an important question, again, where we try to kind of present our findings and insights. And then, of course, there are all sorts of national bodies that oversee nuclear decommissioning and radioactive waste management. And we have been quite successful establishing dialogue with them in the 3 countries, UK, Sweden, and Lithuania. And at the moment, if I may say the last thing, there is actually an application for cost action submitted by the colleagues in Europe. And if we get funding, which touch the wood, we will, that will provide a very important networking activity to place, again, heritage agenda and policy recommendations on the European level.
Thank you. I think that was very important also to bring this discussion from the research into the broader society, because as you remember, it was the demonstration against the nuclear activities which brought to life the Green Movement. Yeah? The Green Movement started with demonstration against dumping the waste, the nuclear waste, for thousands of years and endangering. And I think here the cultural heritage, what you are doing in this research is really, really important to disseminate it to a much broader society to a much broader audience, because in the media I have never heard anything of this kind of research. So, and I'm following closely all kinds of research projects. So please go on with your research, and I hope the cost action will be successful. And thank you also to the JPI Cultural Heritage for funding this kind of research, and that shows really how important it is that also in the research we are open for all kinds of topics, because nearly everything is cultural heritage, and here we can see what we can learn can be really very meaningful for our survival as human beings in the future. So thank you very much, and let's go to Josephine. She has another very important topic of being prepared. Being prepared not only for the climate change, but also for the geopolitical situation of conflicts and wars. And what you have been telling us, how you were working in the Ukraine with the partners and the colleagues, how to value and protect and safeguard the cultural heritage under such horrible conditions. We really have to admire the Ukrainian people, what they are doing to save their cultural heritage under such conditions. And please, Josephine, tell us a little bit more what you have been researching together with the partners, how they can be prepared, and what is the engagement of the civil society.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to wait for this to kick in. Here we are. So I think one of the, maybe surprises for some of the partners in the peaceful countries, like Norway, the UK, Spain, etc., is that when we think about preparedness, it's in terms of cultural heritage, there's always often a focus on the national important sort of sanctified cultural heritage. So recognizing that the meaning and value of cultural heritage changes dramatically during conflict or during hardships, or even, disaster like a climate change connected disaster. It really, really changes what people value. So everyday heritage, intangible heritage, tradition, family, like community heritage comes into much starker and meaningful value for people. So it means that, and even new practices connected to national treasures. So, for example, churches, or take Versailles, would have other heritage practices connected to it in times of war. Do you understand where I'm going? So it means having a recognition that people's engagement for heritage will change during a disaster, and we don't know what this would look like always. So it means when you're planning as a heritage body or a national or an institution, you have to also think that the civil engagement, the civil society engagement will look different than maybe your own priorities as a professional. So, and this trying to harmonize these different types of engagement, it's really important as part of heritage disaster preparedness, I think, across the board. So this is one of the big takeaways, I think, for institutions to think about basically who will need you during a disaster and who will you need during a disaster. And this is not only in the local and horizontal level, but also internationally. So we saw that the institutions that we worked with in Ukraine that were really successful in keeping up their activity, because that's often the goal, just to keep opening hours, have your exhibition, do these things. The ones that had international partners didn't have to be like a big national museum or the Maidan Museum, but small institutions, a local theatre that had friends abroad were the ones most successful in keeping up their activities and also be able to make use of foreign funding. So not the big schemes necessarily, but small funding from partnering institutions in other countries, most notably in neighboring countries, obviously, but also, between Scotland and Ukraine, between Norway and Ukraine, between Italy. So these partnerships that you make in peacetime will be important also for hardships. And this sounds very like maybe a little bit Captain Obvious kind of research, but we really have shown how this works in practice and how institutions are able to benefit from their networks and from small funding. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, thank you. I think that you showed very clearly that we can learn a lot from the courageous Ukrainian people. And when I look around in Germany, and also in other countries, I think the cultural heritage sector is not yet fully prepared. So we really have to learn from our Ukrainian colleagues how to get prepared, not only in times of conflict, but also we have other disasters, climate change and many other disasters. So we really need to be prepared, and we must use all the technology we have available. I think about satellite technology that has been successfully also applied in the Ukraine. Thank you. So now we are going to the wood. I wanted to ask Emanuela, waterlogged wood degradation is still a very serious problem. Think only of the problems they have in Venice. All the wooden piles, they are degrading even when they are stored in the water. So what do you think is the prospect for the future when we see climate change happening, environmental pollution, and extreme events? Do we have a chance to protect the wooden piles? What is your opinion, and what does your research say?
Yeah, I think that it's not only one solution. It depends, of course, case by case, because the equilibrium is very complex. It depends by biological factors, geochemical factors, and so on, no? And also by the function, because you mentioned Venice, but in Venice the poles have also a load-bearing function, so it's quite more hard compared to an archaeological settlement where we have their wood and we need only to think how to preserve it. Anyway, what I would like to highlight is that we could say that if we don't touch wood and we leave it in its state, it arrives to us in that state, and maybe the wood degradation is slower. But we cannot limit what it is going to happen in the future, and it is also difficult to predict it. That's the importance of the aquarium and the mesocosmos in general, because we can make models and to understand something, and then to apply in situ techniques, which, on my opinion, could be very developed. For example, robotics or something like that, in order to have a very frequent idea on what we have in that site, in that in situ site, because we have been supported in our project by the superintendents of CARS, which was crucial for everything, and by also the municipalities and a local museum, but it is very expensive and also for energy, no, for the people. So I think that technology could be very interesting. I would like to leave a message which is very approximative, but maybe it can help. Maybe a safe lake is an health wood. That means if we don't stress so much the water change due to pollution or water uptake in summer, for example, no, due to the drought, maybe wood is more able to be resilient. That's the message.
So that shows again that we have to think much more holistically, not only looking to one specific object, but to integrate all the other disciplines, also the agriculture, because they are influencing the quality of the water in the lakes very much. and
tourism,
and
agriculture,
tourism, yes.
and so on.
But that is exactly what we are doing in the research projects. We are really multidisciplinary, and that has also developed. I mean, when I think back 30 years, we had only projects in cultural heritage dealing with one specific discipline, and now we have really opening up with so many disciplines and also integrating, of course, the citizen science. And since we are already with the wood, thank you, Emanuela, I will ask my colleague Gilles first, because it is also the topic of wood. And I have learned that it is very important immediately after you unbury archaeological objects that you immediately start with the conservation treatments. So, however, I heard also that this is still not fully scaled done, and there is still a lot of room for cooperation. How do you think that the cooperation between archaeologists and conservation science, how has this improved through your long experience in this field? And what do you think about this cooperation and collaboration between the archaeology and the conservation?
In the framework of the project.
In the framework of your project, yes,
yes.
of course. And of course, I mean, you have such a long experience. Maybe you can also speak a little bit about your experience.
So I think now archaeologists use a good practice to protect the wood against their air drying. It is very dangerous for the object. In the project, we can improve. We have interesting results for them about the rubburial, because we treat of an example very rare, because we have a very long duration of a rubburial period, almost 1 century. Because the first excavation of the Biskupin site was done in the years 1930s. And the main conclusion is only 1/2 of the wooden remains resist in burial conditions. Yes, it's an important result. So now we are sure the rubburial is not a guarantee of a good preservation of the collections. Mm-hmm. So for responsible of collections that decide to do this to solve some current problems and to transfer the problem to the next generation, it's not a right idea. So they have to think before, because there is an important risk, because you break down the equilibrium between the object and its environment, and after the first excavations, you change all the condition of the degradation of the wood. The second point is a direct result about the new methodology. So I remain in the Polish examples that test the introduction of new fish species, grass carps, to hit all the biomass created by the invasion due to the climate change. So now this experience is successful. So they continue their experiments to limit the effect of the climate change. And about the storage, so in wet conditions, archaeologists have no important resource in excavation sites. And they have to preserve in humid state these archaeological artifacts. And they are very happy to have some biocide, not so dangerous. And we find a mixture of different biocides. We have a cocktail effect between different products that permits to stabilize the biological effect. So it's a result, an important result of the project for the archaeologist and the management of the excavation site.
What is your recommendation for the people in Sweden for the Vasa ship, because I have followed this very closely, and they are still having continuous wood degradation, and it is an enormous amount of money that goes into the preservation and conservation of this huge ship. What is your opinion?
Yes, this issue is very important in our community. The degradation induced by the destabilization of iron sulfide salt, very common salts in archaeological wood, composite wood. And this sulfide is transformed in sulfuric acid, and it is catastrophic because we have a pH close to 2 and swelling of the concretion, and the object split. So the object is destroyed very rapidly. But as you can see in the topic 3 performed by the University of Oslo, in the project, we were looking for the life of the object except the treatment. Because the treatment is another important topic, and we didn't study new treatments in STAR project. And the main purpose is the characterization of the object to detect as soon as possible the beginning of the destabilization of the salt, to anticipate the big problems that will occur after. So the issue of a new treatment to stabilize and neutralize the acidity is another topic. So we are looking for now on this issue, and I think other workshops and laboratory in the world, but it's not into the scope of the project.
Thank you, Gilles. Let's go now to another type of heritage, which are the aircraft from the Second World War. And as you mentioned, Elodie, this is a completely new topic, at least for me, and I see that you also said that this is often cared by numerous volunteers and associations, not so much by the traditional cultural heritage community. And so I would like to ask you, how do you see the role of volunteers and non-governmental associations and the engagement of the, let's say in brackets, normal people to safeguard this kind of heritage? And I'm coming from an Institute of Material Research. I'm very much interested in the coating you are applying to, because that is really a big challenge, coating for metal surfaces. Please, can you develop a little bit on this topic?
Thanks for this question. Yes, the role is essential. Without them, a lot of aircraft is disappear. So we know, but during the ProCraft we did a state of the conservation politic in different countries. And we know in Europe volunteers are very present on all countries. But sometimes in the UK is the good inclusion in the project, but in France is not the same case. It's very difficult, and the volunteers are very passionate, and they know very well aircraft, but they know little conservation roles. So we have no dialogue between institution and the volunteers, but with the ProCraft project we can create this dialogue, and it's very good, and they are very happy because they include in the research program, and they are very proud, and the help are very important to understand the aircraft and to understand to have an artifact, and they participate with an exhibition at the end of the project, and it's a very good experiment.
And the coatings?
And for the coating, well, for the coating, we work with Italian partners, and they develop different coating, and the very promising coating from of the tomatoes waste. It's a cutting compounds from the tomato skin, and it's a very good protection, but a problem is the tomato is red, so the protection is a little red.
Okay,
so,
we have to rethink.
So now the project is finished, but we continue this research, and we can test another vegetable with this compound to find the good protection. But for the volunteers, we recommend in a commercial compound to use, and this protection already used in Sweden and Australia, so it's another solution.
Yeah, thank you. A green, red tomato coating for aircrafts of the Second World War. I like it. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for this interesting research. Now we go back to the origin of problems, the crystallization. It's not only harmful for the art objects, but also for us human beings. If we have too many crystals in our body, we will have also health problems. So, Nushine, please tell us a little bit more about what do you think is crystallization, what you see also linked to climate change and higher temperatures? And understanding the impact of crystallization is really key for developing conservation and protection measures. So maybe you have some solutions already in mind, and tell us a little bit more about your interesting research.
Okay. Thank you. Hello? Yeah, I think it's working. Okay. The thing is that climate change can really influence the temperature variations and the relative humidity variations in the environment. And also, for example, we can have a lot of increased frequency of rainfall and flooding. And all of this makes that soils are very sensitive to that. So if you have a built heritage which is contaminated with salt or an objects or an outdoor sculptures, then these salts, for example, it can dissolve, and then it can move into the materials, because most of these artworks are made with porous materials, which means that the fluids can invade inside of the material. And if the salt crystallize within the pores, it can make a lot of damage. And so these kind of fluctuation in the environment can really affect that. And if the salt dissolve and go somewhere else to crystallize again, this can make a lot of degradation. Another factor of the climate change is that you can also change the groundwater tables level, and this makes that you can even bring more ions and salt from the soil towards, for example, a wall by rising damp, and then with the change of the environmental conditions afterwards, for example, in summer, the water can evaporate, and then the salt can crystallize again somewhere else in the building or in the outdoor sculptures. So the impact of climate change is really important. And the relative humidity is another aspect, because I think you have all seen or experienced that in your maybe grandparents' house, rice was used in salt shakers in order to remove the moisture, because salts are very sensitive to the moisture in the air, and above a certain relative humidity, they can capture the water vapor from the air. And this is a very slow process, but it can be a very damaging process, because the type of the morphology of crystals that can grow due to the moisture absorption and crystallization is different than if you dissolve with water very rapidly and it goes somewhere else and it crystallizes. So the kinetics, the dynamics of crystallization is also very important. And this is the reason when we talk about cycles of dissolution and crystallization that can make a lot of damage, it becomes an important problem. And so this is the reason also that some preventive measures are very important in this area because, as you said, the subject is very complex. We have the climate parameters, we have the materials parameters, like, for example, if you are in a church or you have sculptures outside, it's made with limestone or sandstone or what type of material is, marble. And you have also the chemistry or physical chemistry of the salts and which type of salts are present. And in reality, we don't have one salt. We are in the presence of several types of salts and ions. And in chemistry, we know very well that when you have several ions present, they can actually affect the crystallization of each other. So if you have, for example, sodium chloride, the table salt, like in the coastal region, and sodium sulfate, a sulfate salt, then you can really change the solubility or the phase diagram of these salts. So then things becomes even more complex. So this is the complexity of the field, but in these last 20 years, we have done a lot of progress to understand how one salt or another salt can affect. But now I think it's time to really better understand how mixed salt actually interact with the climate change and makes such a kind of degradation. But preventive measures is very important. For example, controlling the microclimate around an object. Actually, yesterday I saw in the garden of Versailles, all the sculptures are now protected for the winter period, I think. So this is a sort of preventive measures that are very important because these outdoor sculptures are very sensitive to the temperature, frost damage, and also if it rains with the cold weather now in winter with salt crystallization. So it's a very, very good thing to do, actually. Yeah, so what was the other questions about?
No, the solutions.
Oh, yeah. So the solutions are these preventive measures are some solutions. Then it's better to try also to, if we understand the material dynamics, then we can, for example, also bring solutions about what kind of additives we can use in order to inhibit or slows down the crystallization, or what kind of material we can use to increase the mechanical properties of the material and also slows down the crystallization. But I think nowadays the use of artificial intelligence becomes very important in this field, especially because we have a lot of parameters, as I said, climate, materials, salt. And I think it's really time to use these artificial intelligence models to predict better what is happening or what can happen, for example, in 10 or 20 years. But of course, to be able to use these artificial intelligence models, we need a lot of data. Huh? So then we need to collect a lot of data about the climate, temperature, cycling, relative humidity, moisture in the material, and a lot of data about the materials, the petrophysical properties of materials, porosity, mechanical properties, and also a lot of data about the thermodynamics or how salts mixtures can affect each other. So these can be done, of course, in parallel with a lot of controlled experimental campaign, because even if AI can predict, you should also see if this prediction is correct or not, right? In order to be able to use the right conservation treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for this outlook, and that shows again that we will have more work to do in the future. So we need more research. We need to use the tools we have now available, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning tools, the big data, the platforms. So we must exploit all the data we have. We can build digital twins also for the behavior of so how societies behave, and not only buildings. And that is very important for the future, also for the JPI, climate, cultural heritage and global change, for the future, and maybe also the new partnership. We will hear a little bit more later on. So that is, we are in a critical time, and it is not sure that there will be enough money in the future for research. So that means we all have to work together, and we have to be advocates for research, that the research funding also in the cultural heritage area is not cut too much. I mean, we must save a little bit of money, yes, that's true, because we have other spendings, but still we have to fight together that this research is very important for the future of our next generations. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Annelie, who looks on our discussion from her perspective and summarizes what she thinks about the challenges of the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thank you to you on the scene, because I know behind the scene there's a lot of work behind what you have been presenting. It's a lot of modeling, it's thoughts, you have been doing laboratories, dialogues in various ways, a lot of thinking, collaborations, outreach, methodological development. So thank you for that, and this is really, really important. Also, thank you to JPI for organizing these 2 days. So as we conclude this exciting session, there are a few themes that I would like to highlight that I see cut across the presentations today, but not only today, also yesterday, and I also think that we will hear more about this in the next session. So the first thing I would like to say is that heritage, whether we're talking about it from a material perspective, ecologically, technically, or archaeological, or socially, that heritage is not only at risk, but it's also increasingly exposed to multiple and overlapping pressures. And I think your projects show that heritage seldom faces a single hazard. Risks accumulate, they reinforce one another, and often unfold slowly, which I think is also you have presented evidence of today. And this makes heritage harder to see, and the risks that heritage are exposed to harder to govern and harder to care for. And heritage is thus increasingly policy situated within overlapping pressures coming from environmental challenges politically, technologically and socially, and also geopolitically, which is very much a current issue today in society. It's also intergenerationally, which we also have heard of. So this policy situation provides pressures, but it also, I think, provides us with opportunities and ways to move forward. So we have heard examples of heritage threatened by war, deliberate destruction, decommissioning, climate change, of course, deterioration regarding crystallization and to chemicals and decay of materials. I would like to highlight that these cases that we've listened to, heard of today, illustrate that heritage risk is not an isolated event. It's a condition created by an interaction of various dimensions, global conflict, but also local tensions, and spurred by the symbolism of the heritage that you have been working with. It's not isolated. It's also referring to environmental instability, new technologies, and also economic constraints, and not least politics, and that we actually are in a post-truth society, which is also affecting how we are dealing with heritage today, and the role heritage is playing for people and societies and for politicians. Another shared theme is trade-offs. When resources are limited and pressures are high, we need to make choices about what to preserve, what to stabilize, what to document, and sometimes what must be allowed to deteriorate. Some projects face trade-offs between emergent action and long-term care, others between ecological restoration and the protection of archaeological layers, and others between climate change versus social sustainability. And I think it's important to remember that the decisions that we make in reference to heritage and heritage management and conservation are never neutral. They reflect values and assumptions about what matters to whom and for how long. So we are talking about care under pressure, heritage care under pressure, affected by climate stress, geopolitical tensions, etc., which is another clear theme today. And caring for heritage in a war zone is not the same as caring for a waterlogged artifact, an aircraft wreck, or a lake under climate stress. But what they also show, what is common, is that care is situated, relational, and often contested. And they are technical problems, and we are looking for technical issues, but there are also human problems and human issues. I would also like to highlight that your projects point to what we might call heritage in trouble and troubled heritage. This is heritage whose physical integrity is threatened, but also heritage whose future meaning, relevance, and political position is uncertain. How do we care for heritage whose future significance we cannot know, such as the legacy of nuclear power, archaeological wood that may never be excavated again, or collections whose meaning shifts with political regimes? These projects remind us that heritage futures are not simply predicted, they are shaped and sometimes unintentionally limited by the choices we make today. As a critical heritage scholar, I think it's important that we add this lens onto these issues, and seeing that heritage and what we conserve and what we think about heritage are actually processes shaped by power, values, and governance structures. Inviting us to ask questions like whose knowledge guides decisions, whose losses are counted, who carries the emotional and economic burden when heritage is at risk, and what kinds of futures do our decisions within the heritage sector make possible or impossible. And this highlights also the issue of the heritage governance of risks, which I think sits at the center of everything we have heard today. Each project shows, in its own way, how difficult it is to govern uncertainty. Who makes decisions when risks are contested or simply unknown? How do we coordinate across states, institutions, local communities, and international bodies? And what kinds of cooperation are needed to manage risks that cross technical and political boundaries, from climate impacts to geopolitical threats? I have 1 minute left. What can become clear, I think, is that effective and legitimate governance must be flexible, anticipatory, and participatory. I think it's important, and we have heard much about this these days, is that we must bring communities into decision making, not just as consultees, but as partners and co-stewards. We must move beyond preservation alone to consider issues of justice, equity, and lived experience. Who is protected, who is exposed, and who pays the price when heritage is threatened? Underlying that heritage is not only a reflection of vulnerability, it is also a source of resilience and possibility. I think the work presented can help us understand the boundaries of heritage, how environmental uncertainty affect heritage, that we must grapple with toxic and damaged landscapes and imagine futures that are also socially meaningful.
Thank you, Anneli. Yeah, I think we had a very interesting session dealing with so many aspects and new topics I have learned with the tomato coating. I cannot sleep tonight. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank all of you for your research. Go on, be motivated. And thank you also to the JPI Cultural Heritage and to the organizers for this session and for the whole conference. It is really a pleasure to be here to learn and to fight together for the future of our joint cultural heritage. Thank you so much.
Okay, so hope that everyone has had a nice and energizing coffee break and that you managed to also go through and check out the projects that were represented in the roundtable earlier on, and that hopefully has given you inspiration for new ideas, new collaborations, and we look forward to seeing them come to life in the next years. So we have one more roundtable and one more presentation for this event. And for the fifth and last thematic session, we will be discussing about heritage in context, landscapes, integrated management, and socioeconomic dimensions, under the moderation of Håkon Blorstad, who is a professor of archaeology at the Museum of Cultural History of the University of Oslo, a museum where he also serves as director. His research covers Stone Age archaeology of Scandinavia, archaeological epistemology, and cultural heritage management, and he has been leading or supervising several large-scale excavations in Norway and research projects in the Stone Age archaeology. So without further ado, Håkon, the floor is yours, and wishing you a good discussion.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I would also like to express my gratitude to the organizers for making this conference come true. It's been truly amazing to be here. We will, in this final roundtable discussion, go further into this exciting subject of heritage in context. We will examine how the tangible and intangible heritage is embedded within and interacts with a broader urban and rural landscape. So, consequently, we will try to discuss the strategies for integrating heritage into planning and development, holistic management approaches, and the socioeconomic dimensions of heritage, including its role in tourism, local economies, and cultural policy. And being here in Versailles today, really emphasizes the importance of these subjects, because we are in the end of November. Still, we can see that the stream of tourists and visitors coming to the big sites of European cities and European landscapes are never ending. It's no season anymore. Tourism is a present phenomenon in Europe. But it's also a big economic asset for European countries and European companies. And how to make a balance between this economical development, so important for European economy on the one hand, and on the other side, try to take care of this heritage in a sustainable way, is, from my point of view, an extremely important question. And therefore also holistic planning and how to integrate heritage in a conscious and a conscious and well-thought development of society is a key issue. Originally, we should have 3 discussions here in this session. Unfortunately, the project Arctic Heritage, Commodification, Identity and Revitalization in the Anthropocene has not been able to join us today. But instead, we have 2 excellent researchers and scholars here today that will present their projects. And the first one that I would like to present is the Stefano Bertoschi. He is an architect and also a full professor at the University of Florence. He has specialized in many different fields, but of importance here is his competence on digitalization and digital projects, and also working with architecture. Also, wooden architecture has been a very important subject for him. The second scholar that I would like to introduce is Torgrim Sneve Guttormsen from the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research. He's a research professor there and has been working with many different projects, exploring contemporary heritage and also how urban development is an important part of our understanding of heritage and the heritage concept. So we will start with two short presentations of these projects, and I would like Torgrim to start with the project with a very catchy acronym, Curbateri. Then this is a abbreviation for curating sustainable urban transformation through heritage. So, Torgrim, the floor is yours.
All right. Hi, everybody. We are the last one. We will try to keep the temperature up a little bit about these topics we are going through. So I will just thank JPI Secretary to invite me on behalf of the research group at Curbateri. And it started actually in 2016 when some of us went to the Critical Heritage Conference in Montreal, Canada. And we had the title Deep Cities and invited a lot of people to discuss what that could mean. And it was packed with people at this session. So we understood that this is something that interests a lot of people. What is the deep city and what does it mean in an urban context to reflect on that type of heritage? So we discussed on this conference that deep city could be a political concept, that is challenging the smart city, the green city, and the economical city. Maybe we should also brand that kind of framework in political sense, that we have this deep city as a way to approach the politicians and managers. So that was the first layer. The other was that we wanted to have a concept about this socially sustainable city, well-being, how it's a good place to live, and how would the deep city approach contribute in that aspect. And the last perspective on this was that we want to discuss more theoretically what we mean with deep city. What does it mean, the layered, fragmented city based on other types of heritage? And that involved a lot of people that have been reflected about this, from the more semiotic way to the fragmented past. That was quite interesting. So the result from that conference in 2016 was an anthology, a book from Routledge, where everyone that participated and had a contribution had a chapter, and also people from the audience came up and said they really want to be part of that book. And based on that, we was thinking that maybe this could be a project, a research project. And since we have been involved in another GPA called Heritage Values in 2014, and worked together for a long time. We invited the University of Stirling and UCL London as a UK partner, and University at Florence, Firenze, and the University of Barcelona, so and where I work in Oslo, to think about this project. Then we came up with this project as the result. I just mentioning because it's a good way to work with an idea and find you feel that you have the right group together, and you also have the right idea to go forward to make a research project. So what we wanted to do with this project, as you see here, is first of all to make the availability to reflect about more theoretically, conceptually, as one part of it. And we also want to use some of the approaches that we have been thinking about, like system dynamics modeling, trying to figure out what is the processes going on when the urban environment is shaping over time. But also we also use more conceptual approach based on critical urban theory and urban ensemble theory, just to see how many factors could be involved in how the deep heritage or the deep city and the heritage in the city are evolving over time. So to understand the urban transformation, urban change over time, and what do we have left? What do we do with them? Are they just a waste that should be not taken care of? Or is this a value that could be part of urban development? And doing that, it was also important to have the people involved, more participatory approaches. What do people think about? When you go in Berlin, for example, and you see some bullet holes, and that's what you have, the clue to go for. What happened here? What do people think about this type of heritage? Or you just see a ruined fragment built into a new library or something. What do people think about this type of heritage? So in the project, we invited, using a specific method developed from Sterling University, particularly, to invite people in to reflect about this type of heritage. And also one group, like in Barcelona, was working with more how this could be part of some recommendation, what kind of indicators would that be to some recommendations, like policy brief and other kind of recommendations for people that want to use this. In the core of all this, we want to develop a toolbox that takes in all these different aspects. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that later, but it's the toolbox is the idea is that wherever you come from, wherever your background, if you're a researcher, a manager, or a planner, you can use this from every angle you want and go in to find your right approach to your project. And that toolbox is online. It's on the website for Florence University. I'm pointing to you because you're from that university. so it's, and you can test it yourself to see how it works from your specific project that you have. So it's a multi-angle, trying to cover different needs by using this toolbox based on the project that we had for a couple of years. I can go into that later, perhaps in the discussion, but I would just say one more thing. That is, I think we that started this project have extra competence because we were running a project through the corona. It started in 2019 and ended in 2022, but a little bit over to 2023. So to start a project like this when the corona started, and the first workshop should be theoretical, and we are always sitting on the screen watching each other, trying to have a theoretical discussion, which I think would be best to have when we sit like this together, or in a group. But we managed to do that, and we managed to run the first years, we planned to have a startup discussion in Oslo the first year. We couldn't do that, so we were online. But for me, as leading the project, it was interesting to try to see where people were on the screen, and maybe take more breaks than normal just to figure out where to go next. So I think that's maybe an extra competence for people starting a research project during the COVID. But later on, we could visit each other, and it became more normal, which was also enriching the project. So we went to all the countries, and everyone in the project gets involved in the stakeholders, so we can meet them and discuss this project from different countries, from Spain and Italy and all the way up to Norway, as they have different angles to it. So that's it. Short presentation.
Thank you. And now I would like to ask Stefano Bartoschi to come to the podium and give a presentation of his project, or the project where he is the director, and it's the Franciscan landscapes, the observance between Italy, Portugal, and Spain. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the presentation, for the invitation, and thanks to the organization. Now this is, in this presentation we have this project that is that's born by a big experience about documentation, more than 30 years of experience in documentation, but I would like to put together this experience because the documentation for me is the first step for the conservation, and the modeling is coming in the digital era. The 3D modeling is another opportunity for the conservation that we will give to our heritage. We have seen that in archaeology it's very important to have this opportunity. It's a very traditional project about documentation, and I would like to give you the main ideas. You can see here the QR code. You can go in deep in the website of the project. Naturally, historical research formed the foundation of the project, with archival, bibliographical sources gathered for each selected convent as case study. This experience is born from the experience of 3 countries and from the researcher experience of these 3 countries, the University of Barcelona, University of Lisbona, and the University of Florence. The digital survey and 3D documentation of the chosen sites employed advanced technologies such as terrestrial laser scanning, structural form motion photogrammetry, and drone photogrammetry. By integrating multi-source data, high-resolution point clouds, and 3-dimensional model that we have produced, a 3D documentation representing the architectural and, in this case, the spatial complexity of the selected settlements. These digital sources were combined with the social environment and landscape analysis to create a GIS-based map understanding of the sites surrounding, including topography, vegetation, and access routes. A relational database was developed to link historical survey and landscape data, allowing for intuitive exploration by both scholars and general audiences. The digital infrastructure laid the groundwork for the development of samples of a mobile application and virtual museum, which offered interactive 3D models, multimedia contents, and geographical information accessible via web and mobile platforms. Physical prototyping. We have speak about new opportunity in the digital era for the survey of the heritage. One of the digital outputs of our project is a high-fidelity 3D printed model that conduces to allow tangible interaction with the architectural space. These models were used in exhibition and provided a direct sensory understanding of the convent's spatial organization. The project also places particular emphasis on accessibility, designing an example of interactive portals and tactile models for visually impaired users, experimented in 2 of the case of studies that present very critical environment. Cultural route planning was another key outcome of the project, informed by both historical and digital research. Existing itineraries were reviewed in consultation with stakeholders and local community, leading to design of new routes supported by information that encouraged sustainable tourism. These routes were integrated within a digital framework, linking historical narratives, video, 3D models, and landscape information into a cohesive experience. A conclusion, the final output of the project for the academic staff of the project was organized numerous conferences, workshops, and summer schools, both online and in person. We work in the COVID period, so it was very hard, involving students and researchers for multiple institutions. The final conference was held in Assisi, brought together 96 scholars from a range of disciplines, presenting 49 peer-reviewed contributions and showcasing the project exhibition. The conclusion, we have here the publication of the conclusion of this conference, and you can discharge the digital version from the website. So thank you, and we are ready for the questions.
Thank you very much. I would like to start with you, Stefano, and ask you a question first. The F-Atlas project has combined historical research, digital technology, physical modeling, and public engagement as a comprehensive framework for study, accessibility, and sustainable valorization of the Franciscan heritage. And this is an excellent starting point for integrating heritage into planning and development. Have the results from the project been adopted as tools for local heritage management and developers?
Yes, thank you for the question. We have 2 supporters of the project. That was, one is the administration of the Umbria region. Umbria region is where is born all the Franciscan, but especially this branch of the order that is the observance, that born in the 14th century, in the beginning of the 14th century. And that have the main buildings and the main examples of the sites of the convent. The result of our project, especially in Umbria region, was absorbed by the government of the region as a tool for the planning of the landscape plan of the region. So it's very important, one of the main aspects of the project that give this GIS map, interactive map, for the using to the policy or to the system of the region government. Another aspect of this project is that during a little bit before the beginning of this project, in Umbria, there was the earthquake. That it was not so hard, but it was a consequence of the other earthquake in the Middle Italy. And we have surveyed also the damaged buildings, and we have given to the administration. In this case is the observance religious order that has used our survey directly for the to introduce the dynamic of the project of restoration and recovery of the buildings itself.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that issue, the landscapes and the buildings you are working with in the FATLAS project, they are very fragile, but potentially also very highly attractive destinations for tourism. The remote location of the buildings make access and modern use a challenge. And what are the main challenges of revitalizing these buildings, both as a future potential and as important heritage at the same time?
Well, one of the results of the project is that the condition for the conservation of this heritage are very different in these three countries, in Spain, in Portugal, and in Italy. In Italy, the main problem is the earthquake, as we have seen before. But the most part of this convent are now occupied by the confraternita or religious use. Another case is in Portugal. In Portugal, because of the dissolution of the monastic orders, since 19th century, in several parts they abandoned this heritage because it's located in the wooden areas, in peripheral areas. So it's very problematic. Some of them are ruins, and we can conserve only the memory, the historical memory. Also, if they are the very suggestive experience to go inside this ruin. Usually, in Portugal, the church mainly is devoted to the cultural official, to the religion. But the part of the convent, because was devoted to the countryside, to the people of the site, caused the abandon of the agriculture. Also, these convents are maybe ruined and dispersed. Other situation is in Spain, where some of these complexes, we have analyzed several complexes, but some of these complexes are devoted to museum. And in some part, in some region, especially in Valencia and also very close to Barcelona, this museum, they didn't have money for developing and also for the conservation. So we support this administration, giving a survey, digital modeling, interactive system for the evaluation of this system of public property that are disseminated in they call the España Vota, the Spain without inhabitants. So that is very problematic. It's why we have used this GIS system for give the opportunity to build by the tourism itself, knowing the itinerary, to build itinerary between these complex, giving in the schedule that we have realized, if there is the opportunity to reach by public means or not this settlement, or if there are some opportunity for accommodation, because this is very important for this long trip. By bicycle or by horses, they organize some kind of trips.
Thank you. I will turn over to you, Torgrim, and I have a question about the project. You make transformation and intrinsic quality of history and heritage. Is there, by this, not also a danger that concerns for the present always will be given priority when heritage is valued and involved? And how have you worked to develop the toolbox that you mentioned in your presentation to deal with these kind of challenges?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and this is actually one of the starting points for this project, because it always became big discussions when you talk about urban transformation as a value, because it normally is a threat. So so you have these kind of I will call, maybe people are disagreeing with me, it's typical architectural way of looking at it, that you have this cheese lead that you put over the heritage, and nothing should change. It is this time layer, as you see here in Versailles, it's a time layer that should be protected. And especially World Heritage sites, where you have integrity and authenticity, and if you threaten that values, you can actually lose the label of being a UNESCO site. You know, so that's the starting point from preserving urban heritage as this one-layered protected area, and everything that is going to be changed there is a threat. So what we did, looking at it another way, but because we that everybody see that most cities actually are changing. There's not so many cities that you have this cheese lead on. You have this urban transformation going on, whatever you want or not. So could we try to deal with that as heritage and see how we can approach it theoretically and or conceptually and using a methods for it? So then we focused on all the things that is, the temporality of the city, the heterogeneous city, the relic traces, ruins, and every clue that you can find that have been the time layered of the city, and how to use that. I guess for many people, especially in Mediterranean, this is this is what we do. We have deep layers, and so it's nothing new for us. But still, we realized that we met so many different views about this, and it was undeveloped, that kind of perspective on this. My own readings on this that I found really interesting is a writer called Max Page in 1989 or 1990. He had his book called The Creative Destructions of Manhattan, and using the creative destruction as a concept. Coming from Schumpeter as a theory, but it's used in urban understanding of the changing layers. That you have, it's not only destruction when you destruct something to build something new, but you take care also part of the old into the new, so it becomes a creative wave that defines New York today. So I thought that was quite interesting to see that people are work with this, and when we discussed it in our research project, we found so many clues that could be inspirational to build this project. So when we talked about this toolbox, our idea is to we need a way to understand the dynamics, maybe the system dynamics of what's going on, what kind of processes are shaping the cities today, from historical time today and into the future. And we also want a more theoretical background to that people can say that this is what fits to my project. And ensemble theory would be a way that you actually can use your project and define the ensemble. Ensemble means all the factors that play together. And you can discuss that with planners, you can discuss it with heritage managers, and you can disagree or agree, but that's a foundation for doing anything. And then you also take in the people into it, or a participant approach. You will have more a consensus about what people think about it. So the whole toolbox is about this, trying to very applied research, trying to find ways that people working with urban heritage can use from different angles and build a sound urban development project based on the temporality of the city. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to following up on the last section of your answer there, a sense of belonging and the co-determination are today considered key qualities for social well-being. And the historical qualities of urban environments are generally given high scores when social well-being is concerned. How have you worked with urban developers to reveal the potential of history in their planning Has there been significant differences between the different countries where the projects have made their case studies?
Yeah. So urban developers, they are eager at using what you have in any kind of project that they want to develop, but they realize that they need some professional background to do that. If you then meet a heritage management that is very conservative about this, the project will stop. So this project could serve both sides in a way that it doesn't have to be conflictual. This is what you have. You have a ruin, something from medieval age. You excavate it in the city, what to do with it, and then you can see it as a group and try to work it out. And what I realized with urban planners, urban developers, is that when we ask them, they are in most times doing this intuitively. They know, but they don't know how they know it. So this project actually pinpointed that there's a more methodological way to do this, that you can have a pamphlet of tools. You deliberately know why you choose one before another. So that was kind of they knew intuitively how to do it, but now they have the tool to discuss why do you choose these before another one. So that was interesting also to hear how they worked. Like we had one of the developers in a project was Snøhetta Architects that have developed a lot of projects around the world, and to listen how they work very creativity in a creative way, and now. They saw how we work with it. They could have a fusion based on that. So that was interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally, I would like to ask both of you a question in ways to sum up your projects and also to, in a way, sum up your experience from the JPI Heritage. Based on your experience from those two projects that you have presenting here, one focusing on the heritage in rural landscapes, the other on cities and densely populated areas, what are the issues for heritage management as part of a sustainable society? What is the most important subjects to focus on based on your experience from these projects? Stefano?
So I would like to add something to the project. As University of Florence, I am partner maybe. I would like to introduce another concept. It's not a very technical purpose of the development of the town. We have to take in consideration that we have several kind of town. I can give the experience of Florence. That is now an unsustainable town for the pressing of tourism. And I work with the administration, also our Department of Urbanism working with this. We have to get in consideration that the town is not a museum, is not an archaeological landscape, it's an evolution for the life. And this is a very big problem that changes, because it changes the stakeholders, changes the inhabitants. In Florence, we have the substitution of the inhabitants. So it's a very difficult project, especially in the UNESCO protected area, and especially in the main town. You know, in Italy, we have Florence, Venice, and Rome that have this kind of problem. So there is no existing technical solution, but existing. I am from university, so I believe in an educational project that will be gathered together, population, scientists, urban developers, and we can give together a solution. For example, my work in Florence is as a consultant. It doesn't, but it is related to the project. Sorry, I'm a consultant for the development of historical craft and art craft and the shops in the town. And we have encouraged the administration to create rules for this. That you know that the pressure, the economic pressure, the media system is very pressing, and but this system can change a lot. And this changing, we have stopped this changing with the administration, but also with the population that likes to have services, low-cost services, not high-cost services. So this is very important. And about my project, that is related especially for the peripheric areas. That is a problem all over the Europe, because the urban concentration is very dangerous, and we lose the peripheric areas, and the tourism cannot be the unique rule for these peripheric areas. So we have to put the accent over the well-being. That is another opportunity that we give to the society to encourage the living in this area, and economical development sustainable. That is another key for this kind of situation that we have all over Europe. Sorry for my long internet.
Thank you. And Torgrim, do you want to follow up on that?
We have some more minutes left, right?
I think you have a few 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah, right. No. Yeah, right. So I'm just going to be quick. I think lessons to learn from the project when it comes to, like, one of our core questions about social sustainability, and we reached that questions very like politically, how to bridge that idea with concrete, what's happening in the cities. That's a long chain of theoretical, methodological, and stakeholder perspective all the way. So I think that challenge was interesting to and using case studies based on that. Our lesson learned from that is many urban developing projects using heritage, they are very closed. You have experts having an idea of this place will look in the future, but you have more informal, open attitudes to it, saying that this place, that's what we've done, that's how it is, from now on, lives its own life. And then you feel the well-being, you feel people making their green gardens, they do things that makes them happy to be in this place. So to have this open planning situation that using heritage is not a closed thing. Experts should say, here it is, and this is how it's going to be for the future. It should be more open. And the most successful urban developing project based on heritage is when they are open enough so people can find their own way to making sustainable environments.
Thank you. And if there are any questions from the audience, we would love to have them as well. Yes.
Just to quickly read a question from the chat. Thank you so much to the person that asked it. So it is for Torgrim. Regarding the toolbox, how is one calculating monetary values to culture and cultural heritage? So
monetary values. Kan du oversette?
Thank you.
Oh yeah, all right. Monetary. Yeah. Well, this idea is more like you can't get monetary values if you don't get social sustainability, because you can make environments based on economic profit, but it could be really bad environments. So we, in our project, we approach it the other way around, that if it's environments that's socially, culturally sustainable, then the other will come. What we have seen in most cities, that there's business places you are, and you, as soon as you finish at work, you go back into suburbia and you live there, and the center is dead. There's no people living there. So in our approach, we do the other way around. You make urban cores, urban environments socially and culturally sustainable, and that type of business, which is more economically sound based on our time today. You can have, all these things that happens when you have all the industrial buildings being microbreweries or whatever, markets and stuff like that, which is very popular. I think the biggest challenge and danger is that based on the big world corporations and the way of how the economy runs now, you got very uniform urban historical areas that in its original have been very unique, now becoming very similar. You can go to the harbors in Sydney, harbors in Liverpool, and you see exactly the same kind of urban fabric based on these big corporations using these areas economically. So I think that's the big challenge, to make unique environments that is not used by economic profits in that sense.
Thank you very much, and thank you both of you for a very stimulating discussion. I think you truly demonstrated how embeddedness in society should be part of any methodological design. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you very much, Hekon, Stefano, Torgrim, for this wonderful conversation, and I'm sure that we all look forward to delving into all the materials produced by your projects. They're very interesting, and we are getting close to the end of our event, and instead of the usual conclusions, we would like to leave you with something to look forward to. Something that you can dream towards and brainstorm with the new connections that you have been making throughout the past 2 days, or with the peers that you already have in your network. And we will therefore have a glimpse of future opportunities through the upcoming European Partnership for Resilient Cultural Heritage, which will be presented by Alexandre Cosset. You might remember him from yesterday, but since Pascal introduced him, I will complete what Pascal said. So, head of the JPI CH Secretariat, Alexandre has been working since 2013 for the French Ministry of Culture and the Fondation des Sciences du Patrimoine, the Foundation for Heritage Science in France, to implement and coordinate European research policies on cultural heritage. And one of the ways in which he achieved this was through the coordination of the recently completed Horizon Europe Project ARCH, which stands for Alliance for Research on Cultural Heritage in Europe. So without further ado, Alexandre, please.
Thank you, Miruna. Thank you to all for being part of this event. I think it was very important to showcase the results of all these very diverse projects funded through the JPI. So as Miruna said, instead of conclusions, I will open with new opportunities for funding in the next years. One of these main opportunities is, of course, the partnership, but this doesn't mean that the JPI is not going to exist anymore. It will continue in one form or another, but we are now a bit at a turning point or a milestone. We hope, of course, that all the projects presented today will find their place in the next partnership, but other funding might be also necessary to cover all the diversity of topics that were presented during these 2 days. So to say some words about the partnership, what is a European partnership first? So it's a bit a kind of initiative. Next slide, please. Yes. It's a bit similar to a JPI, considering that it is funded by a consortium of member states, funding agencies and ministries. But this is complemented by a co-funding of the European Commission, generally around 30%. So this means that public partners and the European Commission, they do engage into the implementation of joint research and innovation programs. So these partnerships, they do make a significant contribution to the European political priorities, such as the Green Deal and other priorities. So generally, we have three types of partnership, but the one we will talk about today is a co-funded partnership. Next slide. So in the Horizon program, Horizon Europe program, which is the framework program for research of the European Commission, there are currently around 50 ongoing partnerships on very different topics. And the European Commission launched the process to select around 6 new partnerships for the second part of Horizon Europe. And 2 of these new partnerships are partnerships dealing with social sciences and humanities. So one on resilient cultural heritage and one on social transformations, which will start a bit later next year. So the budget from the partnership comes from the Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe, where all the clusters are located, and especially the cluster on culture, creativity, and inclusive societies. Next slide. So a call was published by the European Commission in May 2025, and we answered, and there were different answers with a big consortium. The answer was submitted in October, and the result should be public in mid-December this year. So we expect to fund a 10 years partnership, and its activity should start in 2026. This Resilient Cultural Heritage Partnership is covering 2 core challenges, which are quite wide in the different priorities and research topics that they cover. The first one is the limited research and evidence regarding adaptation strategies and the impact of climate and environmental change on cultural heritage. And the second one is about the opportunities and the need for enhanced understanding, use and recognition of how cultural heritage can inform policies and guide implementation measures, including the role of traditional and local knowledge. So around these 2 core challenges, we proposed a set of different objectives for the future partnership. Next slide, please. So you have them on my presentation, but they range from building capacity, provide more resources and incentives, create and disseminate new knowledge, promote innovation, develop different methodologies, improve the long-term monitoring, integrate cultural heritage into mainstream climate change and environmental regulations, provide a number of policy recommendations, encourage, of course, the continued conservation and preservation of cultural heritage, and increase collaboration across countries and regions. So next slide. So in the partnership, we gathered commitments from 30 different countries, which is quite a very large number, 24 European member states, and 6 associated countries, including newly associated ones such as Egypt, which will be part of the consortium. So this is quite exciting in terms of geographical coverage and opportunities to create transnational consortia. Next slide. So one of the main activities of this partnership, like the JPI Cultural Heritage, will be to launch joint transnational calls. So this partnership aims to launch around 7 transnational calls, and their topics will be based on the strategic research and innovation agenda, This Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, or SRIA, has been drafted and defined through a 3-year project, which is the ARCH project, which ended in last September. So you have access to this SRIA on the Heritage Research Hub. Each of these calls, of course, will fund transnational consortia composed of 3 research teams from 3 different countries. The countries have to participate to the partnership, otherwise their teams are not eligible. So these are very similar rules to the rules of the JPI. The total budget for the 7 transnational calls will be around 200 million, which is quite an impressive increase. I don't know if you remember yesterday, we were around 47 million for the JPI on 10 years. Now on the same period, we almost have 4 times the same amount for the next 10 years. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary on how the call works. So you see you have a group of countries bringing resources in a virtual common pot in yellow. Based on these initial commitments, the European Commission is funding 30% of the total. And then the money is redistributed to transnational consortia through the calls. With 3 countries and approximately 3 years projects. Next slide, please. So about the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, a few words. This has been a very difficult exercise because we had to work with 30 different countries and try to align their priorities and needs for the next years. But we managed to come with a document. So the document is composed by 3 different elements. First, some research and innovation principles that will apply to all research conducted in the partnership. 3 cross-cutting themes that are, as the title says, cross-cutting to all the different priorities. And finally, 3 priority areas. The first one on cultural heritage and environment, the second on cultural heritage and society, and the last one on cultural heritage and governance. So each of these priority areas is divided in several themes, as it is shown in the next slides. Thank you. So you can see for priority A on cultural heritage and environment, there are 5 different themes, one on impact assessment and risk management, one on the role of cultural heritage in climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies, one on innovative and green solutions, one on rediscovering human-environment interactions, and the last one on climate change through the lens of cultural heritage. For the priority B, cultural heritage and society, 5 themes again, addressing the loss and damage of cultural heritage, geopolitical crisis, conflicts and climate change, traditional knowledge and practices as resources for the resilience of societies, the role of cultural heritage in fostering well-being and quality of life, and finally, cultural heritage and critical thinking. And for the last priority, priority C, 5 themes again, cultural heritage and sustainability governance frameworks, making the governance of the cultural heritage sector sustainable and climate neutral, connection between climate change and cultural heritage use, economics of cultural heritage for climate action, and finally, relation between climate justice and the right to cultural heritage. So I should also underline that many of the advisory and scientific board members who are present today contributed actively to this strategic research and innovation agenda, and I want to thank them for their work on these priorities and themes. About the other activities of the partnership, yes, so you have them. Beside calls, so the idea is really to implement a set of additional activities, they are called like that by the European Commission, to create a kind of enabling environment for the researchers that will benefit from the different funding opportunities. So these activities, they do include mapping activities to map the existing ecosystem in the field covered by the partnership, so from regional, national to transnational scale. Also the communities, research and professional communities, showcase best practice and also increase information about the available infrastructure services in the field so that we can create more synergies between the research conducted and the use of these services. We will also implement networking activities such as the creation of a knowledge hub to gather all projects funded and so that they can benefit from mutual experience and expertise. We will also implement capacity building activities with a dedicated program of training opportunities, but also by identifying better all the existing ones in the different countries. Living labs will also be used, so studied, mapped, tested and upscaled to use them as a complementary way to implement research and also accelerate the transfer to policy and society of the different results achieved through the projects. Foresight activities will also be implemented, especially to update the strategic research and innovation agenda. Of course, monitoring and evaluation of the results and impact of the activities. International collaboration, and here we count on your contribution also because we really need to open the partnership beyond Europe. So we have the possibility to involve countries which are part, of course, of Horizon Europe, but also countries which are not part of it, and they can fund the calls. And so this means also that their research team can participate to the consortia. So if you have any suggestion or contact, we are really keen to discuss with these contacts. And finally, of course, dissemination, exploitation, and communication, online and offline. And also two important elements. One will be to bridge the cultural heritage community with the climate research community. So this will be really an activity in itself. And finally, also to harness the potential of the different creative and cultural industries, but also the GLAMs to showcase the results of research and transmit these results to society and also to the other stakeholders. Next slide. So this is just a small recap to show the transition from the JPI Cultural Heritage to the partnership. And the element in the middle was the ARCH project to prepare this transition. And finally, I think, yes, just a reminder about the Heritage Research Hub. So many of the projects presented yesterday and today, they have a small page on the hub. This hub will stay the location for the next partnership. So we hope that it will be developed, and we foresee new functionalities to use it more as a matchmaking platform, but also to showcase results, showcase policies, and increase all this. So we really encourage all of you to subscribe to the hub and also to the newsletter to stay tuned about the future opportunities. So thank you very much. And before we close, I will give the floor to Pascal, the chair of the JPI Cultural Heritage, to say some words.
Thank you, Alexandre. Just some closing words. I won't be long, I promise. To thank the European Commission for its strong support through the CSA Arch that we managed to prepare this future partnership on resilient cultural heritage. And I want also to thank again all the speakers, all the participants for sharing so generously their knowledge and the results of their researches. And I can say on behalf of the members of the JPI that we have very well spent our money. And so many thanks. And it is very stimulating in the perspective of the partnership, because we see we already have a strong dynamic, and we will follow in the frame of the partnership. And just one last word. All the informations you need, because I saw many of you took pictures of the PowerPoint of Alexandre. You find all the information on the Heritage Research Hub. It is your hub. It has been conceived as your hub, and you can share information. Don't hesitate to go to Shang-Yun Chen. He's the manager of the hub. He does it very well, and you can make links to your own sites. So use this important tool. And many thanks again to the audience also online, which was quite numerous. And for me personally, it was really a great pleasure to be here during 2 days in Versailles. Thank you.